There's a scene in the very first episode of the Boondocks that most people remember as a joke. Huey Freeman, 10 years old, scowl set into his face like the muscles never learned how to do anything else, stands up in the middle of an all-white garden party in Woodcrest and announces three things.
Excuse me, everyone, I have a brief announcement to make. Jesus was black, Ronald Reagan was the devil, and the government is lying about 9/11. Thank you.
McGruder gives you that scene twice in the pilot. The first time, it's a dream. Huey delivers the three lines and the garden party erupts. Tables flipping, fists flying, the tasteful afternoon disintegrating into the riot the words deserve. Then Huey wakes up. And later, at the actual garden party, he steps up to the microphone and delivers the exact same sentences. Nothing happens. The white liberals applaud politely. Someone remarks on how articulate he is. The radical speech lands with the same impact as a wine recommendation. That double scene is the entire show in 30 seconds. The version where the truth breaks something is the dream. The version where the truth gets absorbed as edgy entertainment by people too comfortable to be moved is the reality. McGruder told you, in episode 1, which version of America you were actually living in. And nobody, not the people in the show, not the people watching the show, not the network airing the show, took the report seriously. Because it came from a kid with a sword and an afro who scowls for a living. Aaron McGruder is a genius. That's not in dispute. The Boondocks earned a Peabody nomination, shaped a generation of comedy writers, and gave us Uncle Ruckus and Granddad and Riley Freeman quotes. People still text each other 20 years later. McGruder built an animated show inside an American media landscape that was actively hostile to its content, and he made it land. None of that is being questioned here. But Huey Freeman saw something underneath the comedy, something McGruder kept burying inside punchlines because that was the only way to smuggle it past the executives and the audiences who would have walked away from a lecture. And the terrifying thing isn't that Huey was right. The terrifying thing is that the show told us he was right, in episode after episode, for 4 seasons. And we treated it like comedy because comedy was the genre we'd been handed. Over the next 10 minutes, you're going to see how every prediction Huey made between 2005 and 2014 has come true, and how the culture that worshipped this show absorbed all of it without changing a single thing he was warning us about. To understand what Huey was, you first have to understand who he was named after. Huey P. Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, shot down in West Oakland in 1989. The name isn't an accessory. McGruder named the protagonist of his show after a man whose political career was built on the argument that the American system was engineered, deliberately, to extract from black communities while telling them the extraction was their own fault. That's a thesis statement. And then McGruder gave that name to a child in a suburb. He put a panther in a cul-de-sac and watched what happened. What happened is that nobody listened, not even the people who loved him. Compare Huey to Riley. 2 brothers, same household, same grandfather, same access to the same information. Huey reads Frantz Fanon and watches the news with a notepad. Riley wants the chains, the cars, the rappers, the violence as aesthetic. Same DNA, same kitchen table, completely different processing. The show didn't put Riley next to Huey to make Huey look reasonable. It put Riley there to show you what happens when the marketing works. Riley is what the system was built to produce. A boy told 1,000 times a day that authenticity means consumption, that masculinity means cruelty, that respect means brand recognition. Huey is what happens when one kid refuses the script. McGruder gave both of them to you in the same house and watched the audience pick Riley as the breakout star. Because Riley was easier to put on a t-shirt. Huey wasn't trained to survive the suburb. He was trained by his own reading, by his own discipline, by his own refusal to diagnose the suburb. Those are different projects. Survival means assimilation, code switching, getting along. Diagnosis means standing in the room and naming what's happening while everyone tells you to sit down. Huey chose diagnosis every time. He gets ignored at home, dismissed at school, mocked by his peers, and the laugh track lives in the gap between what he's saying and how nobody's hearing it. That gap is the entire show. The audience laughed in the same gap. We were the joke, we just didn't know it yet. Then comes Return of the King. Season 1, Episode 9, the episode every Boondocks fan claims as the show's high watermark. Martin Luther King doesn't die in 1968. He goes into a coma. He wakes up in the year 2000, and the country he wakes up to is one he doesn't recognize. A black America that worships violence as aesthetic, calls itself by the slur its grandparents fought to bury, treats civil rights as something that already happened, and treats Dr. King himself as either irrelevant or embarrassing. He tries to organize. Nobody comes. He tries to preach. Nobody listens. And in the climactic scene, this prophet of American moral history stands up in a black church and says the word that breaks the room. He uses the slur, in grief, in despair, in the only language they seem to understand, and then he leaves the country. The episode ends with Oprah Winfrey elected president in 2020, not as triumph, as punchline. The country couldn't be moved by King. It could be moved by Oprah. McGruder's specific bet was that political demand would be replaced by celebrity comfort, that the structural change King died for would be substituted with a more palatable face. He aired that prediction in 2006. The actual first black president arrived 2 years later from a Senate seat instead of a daytime studio, and the substitution Huey warned about happened anyway. Symbol where substance was supposed to be. And 4 years later, McGruder doubled down. Season 3, Episode 1. It's a Black President, Huey Freeman. Aired in 2010. Obama is in the White House. And in Woodcrest, everyone is celebrating. Granddad puts on his best suit. The neighborhood throws a dinner party. And Huey, the only person in the room reading what's actually happening, refuses to celebrate. Not because he hates Obama, because he has done the reading and knows what representation without structural change becomes. It becomes a finish line painted on the side of a road that still runs the same direction. He says it out loud. Granddad calls him ungrateful. The dinner party calls him bitter. McGruder frames the entire episode through Werner Herzog, the real German documentarian, following Huey around as the subject of a film about disillusioned children of the post-civil rights generation. Herzog cannot understand why this kid won't celebrate. Nobody can. And at the end of the episode, Huey delivers the line that has been the entire show all along. What's the point of talking if nobody learns? That's the verdict. Huey said it twice, 4 years apart, in 2006 before it happened, in 2010 while it was happening. And the people in the room called him a hater both times. The thing you celebrate as an arrival is often a substitute for the destination you actually wanted to reach. And once everyone agrees you've arrived, the door to the destination quietly closes. Huey told you what was coming. Episode after episode. The Winkler family, 3 generations of white billionaires who own the town, who run the predatory loans that hollow out Granddad's house. Watch the episodes where Granddad gets trapped in a subprime mortgage 2 years before the 2008 housing collapse, and tell me which part McGruder was making up. He wasn't making up any of it. Watch A Date with the Booty Warrior. Strip the comedy off. What's underneath is a 10-year-old explaining to his classmates that the American prison system is engineered to consume black boys, that going inside is a designed outcome, that the school they're sitting in is the front end of a pipeline. He says it out loud. To other children, the joke of the episode is that nobody believes him until they're literally on a field trip inside the prison, watching it happen. Watch the episodes with Gin Rummy, McGruder's literal animated version of Donald Rumsfeld, quoting the known unknown's speech verbatim while running street schemes in Woodcrest. The argument was simple. The logic the American government uses to justify foreign wars is the same logic small-time predators use to justify domestic ones. We just call one of them patriotism and the other one a crime. That episode aired in 2006. We are now living in a country that has imported every single one of those logics into its domestic surveillance apparatus. Huey saw the import coming. He named it Nobody Listened. Watch the hunger strike and the Uncle Ruckus reality show. Or try to. Because BET, the network that holds significant power over Black American programming, pressured Sony to pull both of them. The official reason was that the episodes were too critical of BET specifically. The actual reason was that Huey Freeman, inside the show, was making the argument that the entire architecture of Black entertainment had been engineered to keep Black audiences consuming and not analyzing. He was making that argument on a platform whose biggest competitor was the company being indicted. The network responded by getting the episodes buried, which is to say, the system did to the show exactly what the show predicted the system would do. The censorship was the proof. Let's talk about how the world received Huey Freeman. The Boondocks is universally praised. Critics call it groundbreaking, fearless, ahead of its time. And the dominant cultural read on Huey himself, the one that stuck in comment sections and YouTube essays for 2 decades, was this. Huey is funny because he's so dramatic. Huey takes everything too seriously. Huey is the buzzkill who won't let anyone enjoy anything. That phrase, in various forms, got repeated so many times it became consensus. And once something becomes consensus, people stop interrogating it. They just pass it along. Huey is so dramatic, but, always the retreat back into comedy. Because the alternative was admitting that the dramatic kid was right, and we'd been laughing at the diagnosis for 15 years. By whose standard was Huey dramatic? By the standard of an audience that wanted satire to entertain them, not to indict them, Huey wasn't dramatic. Huey was vigilant. There is a difference between a person who panics and a person who has been watching the building catch fire for 15 minutes while everyone around them argues about the smoke alarm. The show's structure works against him on purpose. He's a child. His voice is small. He's surrounded by ridiculous adults. Every frame cues you to read him as the comic device. Strip all of that away. Just take the argument. American mainstream media is engineered to keep black audiences consuming and not analyzing. Political theater has replaced political action. Community decay isn't accidental. It's profitable to specific people who can be named. The people in charge benefit from your distraction and have designed an entire entertainment economy around producing it. Is any of that wrong in 2026? Name the part that's wrong. The part where social media made the surveillance state cheaper than the government ever dreamed. The part where political conventions look like reality shows, because reality shows were the training ground. The part where consumer debt has become so normalized that a generation of Americans treats it as a personality trait. The part where the gap between what your phone knows about you and what you know about your phone has become the central asymmetry of modern life. Huey called all of it. In a cartoon, on a network, 20 years ago. And here's the part that lands hardest. The show itself became the proof. Season 4 happened. McGruder left. The studio kept the show running without him. The new season was glossier, lighter, less political, more palatable. The teeth came out. The diagnoses softened into one-liners. The show became, in its final season, the exact thing Huey had been warning audiences to watch out for. Smart black art, defanged and laundered through corporate ownership, sold back to the audience as continuity. Most people don't even acknowledge Season 4, which is itself the perfect Boondocks ending. The system did to Magruder's show exactly what Magruder said the system does to everything. It consumed the rebellion and resold it as content. Huey was right about that too. He didn't even need to be on screen for it to happen. Huey Freeman wasn't a pessimist. A pessimist believes nothing can change. Huey never gave up. He kept reading, kept watching, kept showing up episode after episode to file the same report to a room that wouldn't listen. That's not pessimism. That's a kid who believed so completely in the possibility of a different outcome that he was willing to spend every minute of his fictional life warning people who treated him like a joke. If you think Huey Freeman was too dramatic, name one thing he warned about in 2005 that isn't worse in 2026. The media consolidation, the political theater, the consumer debt, the community fragmentation, the surveillance, the wars, the rebranded oppression, the selling of resistance as a costume. Name one. I'll wait.